Good morning, everybody. We're just starting a little early so we can give people a chance to join, and hopefully we'll be joined very soon by Jordan Parker, who is a colleague and friend. You guys are gonna love this. This judge just spanked the hell out of Blanche. Hi, Kathy. So anyway, we plan to start right at the top of the hour, so grab your coffee. You can see that I am full of coffee and getting fuller. This is one of my favorite cups. Jordan's going to be joining us from Mexico, so that's pretty cool. Hi, Pamela. You're welcome, and thank you. Oh, and Oregon? Yeah, that'd be really cool, actually, if you guys wanna fill the chat with your locations, if you're comfortable sharing them. Hey, MJ. Hey, Jeff. Karen. Oh, I have lived all up and down Route 2. I'm actually a New England girl at heart, although where was that person? Although Amanda, I have spent a fair amount of time in Albany because I'm from New York originally. So it's great to see everybody from all over the place. This is awesome. And again, if you're just joining, we are waiting for the top of the hour because that's when we said we'd be starting. And I'm just letting people pull up a chair, get your coffee, and here we go. Look at that. Okay. Hey,
Hello.
Jordan.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, so we are just waiting for, the top of the hour because that's when we said we would start. But, well, I don't wanna put you on the spot, but maybe, could you give us a little bit of your stand-up routine?
Oh gosh, what
It's o
what do I say? I haven't been doing it as much lately, but I will say that I am engaged to be married, and I don't get
Yay!
yay! And I don't get the people who love being single. I love the predictability, the comfort, the security, and the love, and all of that comes with it. Dating was miserable, and I like because I had much lower standards when I was single for a long time, as one does. And when I was dating and didn't really know what I want, I liked my women like I liked my coffee. I would take literally anything you have to offer me. I didn't care if it was not hot anymore or she came from the station. I just needed something to perk me up to drive home. Now, granted, that's a small exaggeration, but I always loved that. That was one of my favorite closers to do. That was always a nice crowd pleaser. Uh, Also, very, very hard, very tough to just think of a joke when you're not thinking of one. It's sort of like, hey, you're a lawyer,
I
lawyer.
get it. I get it. I get it. So I will tell people that Jordan and I first met during his Butters tour while he was still living in the US. And Butters was actually, I think Butters was better known online than you were. Butters was Jordan's dog that he adopted, and he did pass, but he was just the most awesome dog. But now you have what? I don't know, 70 dogs? That's what it seems like.
If my loving partner had her way, we would have 70, and I compromised at 3 and leaving open the door to 4, 5, 6 because,
Yeah.
there's a lot of dogs here. We have adopted 3 dogs. We have 1 puppy that my darling had texted me one day, and she said, "My love, we need to talk," but thank goodness the photo went through because "My love, we need to talk" is a terrifying thing to
Oh,
read.
yeah. Yeah. Can I would like to say that I would love it. I would like to take a little bit of credit for talking you into keeping Inky. Maybe it was already a done deal, but I think at the beginning you were not so sure and I kept pushing you. So to the extent that my nagging you helped at all,
Well, what is a law degree other than a license to nag until you get your way?
well, I mean, it is actually proof that you have a degree in nagging, an advanced degree.
If I were to explain our job badly, I would say it's passing passive aggressive notes to the judge about the other side until the judge says, "All right, enough."
I would say that's pretty accurate. So welcome everybody who has just joined. We are just waiting for the very top of the hour because that's when we promised that we were going to start talking about this judge's order. Jordan actually brought it to my attention, and I love him for that because he's just a great colleague and he's a very ethical lawyer, which you shouldn't even need to say ethical in front of a lawyer, but as we will be discussing momentarily, there are a lot of unethical lawyers out there that the administration has somehow managed to find. I mean, I would love to see the Glassdoor job listing that they put out there because I imagine it reads must have no scruples, must pledge allegiance, and must be willing to do pretty much anything, even if it borders on the illegal. Also, must not mind being smacked constantly by judges in the court.
I think part of joining this administration is a willingness to sacrifice your dignity. I mean, we've seen this many times, like one of those lawyers that appeared in an immigration case and essentially said something to the effect of, "I don't know, Your Honor, it just sucks being here," and then she was out the door pretty quickly after that. But
I
the
remember that case.
Yeah, and the challenge, people have this negative view of lawyers, and I would actually say we're generally more required to be ethical because of
Yes.
state bar regulation, the fact that we have to take ethics exams regularly, take ethics classes. That doesn't mean that all lawyers will abide, but I would say, and I think this is relevant to our upcoming discussion, is I think when you work for the government, I think the courts for a long time have kind of assumed a kind of regularity, like you're not going to hide the ball from us. And I think we kind of they were giving deference for a while. And I think generally speaking, a judge will assume you're telling the truth unless you give them reason not to. And that's especially true of lawyers because it's illegal to make false statements in court. It's illegal to mislead the tribunal. It is illegal for a judge to, sorry, for an attorney to act in a way that constitutes a misrepresentation. Doesn't matter if you're
Mhm.
zealous advocating for the client. You have to be truthful. And for the first time in recent memory, judges are having trouble believing the government.
Yeah, and the government lawyers, and again, that's what we're going to see in this decision that you brought forward. That the judge actually says something to that effect, and it's pretty crazy. Yeah, we are actually officers of the court, and ethical attorneys take that responsibility very, very seriously. And I will say, uh, I was not above also using that responsibility in certain settings. So, for example, I once saw a woman, I think she was a grandmother, and she had her granddaughter who couldn't have been more than 4 or 5, and the granddaughter had an ice cream cone, and the ice cream fell onto the pavement. And this woman started screaming at this poor little girl, and I walked up to her and I said, "Ma'am, I'm an officer of the court, and if I catch you doing that again, I will haul you before the court." Now, all of that was technically true, although to haul her before the court, I would have had to have someone else intervene. But again, that officer of the court, I I'm actually kinda getting goosebumps. I really take it seriously, and I know you do as well, and, I used to joke, you know 99% of the lawyers out there make the other 1% of us look really bad, and that was a joke. But now, I've just I still absolutely believe that what we're seeing in this administration is still an aberration in terms of attorneys, and I am confident that even the attorneys that are there are approaching it by looking at how far they can stretch the bounds of the law and ethics. You know, they probably don't really think they're crossing a line. They probably think they've come right up to the line and they're being oh so clever to figure out how to stretch those boundaries. Um, but they still are even there, they're the exception. And I just wanna remind people, and I know you wanna say something, but I just wanna remind people that all of these judges that are holding the guardrails, first of all, they're heroes. They are absolute heroes. Judge Boasberg, just so many of them, but they're also all attorneys. They are the examples of what most attorneys are like. What were you gonna say, Jordan?
Well, my hearing of that saying, I must be more optimistic than you because I always said 98% of lawyers get 2%. So I'm double that. Uh, I think that's one. Two, it is heroic, but there's also something, it's so banal. Like, it shouldn't be heroic to uphold the law. It shouldn't be heroic to speak honestly in court. It shouldn't be. But we're at a point where I think, since we're talking weaponization, I believe this government has really weaponized the cynicism of people. Like, oh, we talk about this. Like, the whole big reason we're here is people like, oh, all politicians lie. I'm like, well, yeah, but stretching the truth and like is aspirationally is bad. But that's much, much different than going to court and either saying things that are false or hiding things from the court or deliberately not telling an attorney something so they can go to court and briefly say, I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
the, the people's misapprehension about the difference of lies, the difference of spin versus outright lying and the consequences of it is, I think, where we are, which is why I think we can laugh sometimes, at the reflecting pool stuff, which let's not go into that. But the fact that they're lying about such tiny things leaves open the door that they'll lie about much bigger things. And I think that brings us to this point of this is not in a vacuum. This administration, and not just lawyers, but throughout the government, there are numerous instances of government officials lying about very inconsequential things to the point of, well, why wouldn't you just admit that this is the case? And, because the guy at the top does not want them to contradict him. And that kind of brings us into the weaponization fund of uh, the government had a very, very simple solution. And in fact, it says that in the order. And you can see the judge is like, oh my God, I made this so easy for you.
okay.
All
So
had to, yeah.
I
Go
would
for
say let's back up for the people who are just joining. Welcome. We are talking about a judge's order late yesterday having to do with the weaponization fund, and I just want to uh, give people the overview before you get into the details, which is what I do want you to do. But basically, this judge said to Todd Blanche, "Your assurances in your testimony to Congress are not enough." He was basically, they've been trying to get all of the cases that are dealing with, fighting this weaponization fund. The administration is trying to get them dismissed because they claim that they are moot because Blanche said to Congress that they weren't moving forward with it. And this judge basically said, "Your word means nothing, and you are ordered to produce by July, whatever the date is, this information, here in this court case. It's not going to be dismissed because I don't believe you." And basically, not only and I'm gonna let you elaborate on this, but I don't know if you caught where he said basically, um, you know, "No, you didn't have to have depositions," because Blanche was saying, "Well, I don't have to go through depositions. I already said in congressional testimony that it's not gonna go forward, and you know, I don't need to go through the hassle of depositions and all that because it's moot." And the judge said, "Well, you wouldn't have had to, but now you're gonna be
Now
subject to
you what?
discovery."
Now you wait. Now you
So
wait. And I think the background of the case is important because the question is why would a judge possibly not trust these lawyers? And it's not just that they wouldn't put forward a declaration. The whole creation of this fund is shady. It was a lawsuit where Trump sued the IRS for leaking his tax returns and claimed the $10 billion damages, except who was president when they were leaked? He was. So essentially, he's suing his own government that was under his control and his people, and then at the time that they were about a judge was about to basically order them, as I understand, like, you need to come to court and explain what's going on because this kind of seems like you're suing yourself. Something seems off here. So they thought, well, we'll just enter into a confidential settlement, as one does when you sue yourself. And they, well, and the fund was 1.776 billion dollars, because 1776, ha ha ha, has nothing to do with anything, has nothing to do with the injury, which is Trump tax returns being leaked, and essentially an unaccountable slush fund. So they said, guys, we're done, we're mooted. So this whole case has been slimy. There's been trying to Judges really don't appreciate, and you know this, they don't appreciate when you try to play cute with them. They don't appreciate when you're like, golly shucks, I'm just a simple country lawyer, I don't know nothing about this. And but they revived this case and they said, no, this is shady. And as you recall, there was oh, yes,
no, just if I can explain. So first of all, as my followers know, slimy is actually a technical legal term.
yes, no ad hom.
And yeah, so to refresh your memory, guys, Trump dismissed his own case with prejudice, which was the first thing that clued me into, like, wait a minute, that's really weird. Um, but the judge reopened the case, which is what Jordan alluded to, but that's very unusual. It is really unusual for a judge to reopen a case, based on their perception that there was something really shady going on. So I just wanted to, like, make people aware that this is a really unusual thing that's happening. And again, it's the court, the judges holding, the line saying, "Wait a cotton picking minute." Take it away, Jordan.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of shadiness leading up to this point, and there's also the fact that in other cases, lawyers have been either caught not necessarily affirmatively misrepresenting, but kind of playing a little too cute by far. This entire
Mhm.
thing was Todd Blanche said, I'm not, he didn't even say, I'm definitively not going to do this. And I guarantee you, we will never do this. He did the lawyer speak of it's not moving forward at the moment.
But it's
But
very important.
yes, it's very important. And, you know, we all, one of the first things I do for any client that's involved with litigation is I tell them, don't post about this on social media. Don't say stuff outside the court because someone will use that as evidence. And you tell me us not to do ad hominem. So I will say Trump is one of the worst clients you can have because he cannot, like a bad Bond villain, cannot stop telling you his plan. So Todd Blanche would be like, well, obviously we would never move forward. It's not in the cards. He'd be like, yes, it is. I want it. I absolutely want it. It's justified, and we're gonna do it somehow. Don't you worry. Like, oh my god. Like a couple weeks ago, he was asked, Well, obviously, it's not going to go to violent rioters. And like many layups that the president has been given, he just drops it. But like, well, I mean, you never know. Some of these guys, I got to look at their cases. Oh, so didn't bother to look at every single case when he pardoned them, while also leaving this open. Like, well, obviously, it wouldn't go to anyone who abused children afterwards. Like, well, who knows? We got to look. At
Some of them, there's good people on both sides.
It's good. It's so. Oh yes, there. The fact is that the government attorneys have not created a situation where courts trust them, which is itself extraordinary because police, prosecutors, whether you call it fair or not, typically get a benefit of the doubt. The idea is, well, you're serving the public, and it's almost adorable. They're like, well, why would someone who serves the public do something nefarious? That would just make me sad, And these guys, they just don't. The courts don't believe the government, and I mean, I would say maybe skepticism is a good thing. And in this case, Trump, by his extrajudicial statements saying that he wants it to move forward, judges have started to notice that there is often a gap between what the lawyers lawyerly say in court versus what Trump says. This is why Trump will say outlandish things outside of court and promise to do court filings that support it. And then his lawyer's like, no, we're not going to do that because we don't have the evidence here. And in this case, it says a lot that Blanche was more, who's going through confirmation right now for AG. This is actually a sticking point. Like some senators say they don't want to move forward unless he says definitively this won't happen. So he could be costing himself this job that he so desperately wants because he can't offend the big guy who would be angry if he writes something that says, we swear we're never doing this. So he's stuck between a rock and a terrible client, which is why, to pivot back to what you said about lawyers giving people a bad name, I take issue with that because we act like lawyers are just in a vacuum as opposed to what's, lawyers are a tool, and we are often wielded by clients who ask us to do things. And if it's not unethical or illegal, we might end up doing it. Like, even we're like, okay, this motion will waste time and money, but if you really want us to do it and you're going to pay for it, fine. But a lot of the time, lawyers have to represent clients that we tell them it's in your best interest to settle right now. Trump, it's in your best interest if I just sign this document that says we're not moving forward. Like, no, I don't want to do that. I want you to go to court and say we don't have to. And that's the problem. They're dealing with a mercurial, to use a very kind euphemism, mercurial person who isn't quite sure from one day to the next what he thinks and what he wants, but they have to carry out his will. It should be the will of the United States of America, but they've decided that Trump and the United States of America are the same thing, and they are acting. It's no surprise he's a criminal defense lawyer who represented Trump, and he's kind of acting like his criminal defense lawyer here, which
Right,
is improper.
right, right. And of course, it's true that, either he knuckles under to what Trump wants or he's going to be out of a job. And, you know, he the people who are there now have the, if you want to call it a benefit, the benefit of hindsight of knowing what will happen to them if they don't do what he says. Not only will they be out of a job, but they will themselves be on the enemies list. Although more and more, and we are seeing law firms and state agencies now touting this. The good DOJ lawyers that are all out of a job now are going to these other law firms that are fighting the administration, and they're going to the state agencies that are fighting the administration, and they know where stuff is buried. So that is at least the good thing. So what exactly in your review of this order? And it's a short order. I'll be writing it up for my subscribers. It's only 4 pages, but it's just so beautiful. And before I say anything else, I want to remind people we are talking with Jordan Parker. He is the stand-up lawyer because he is a very ethical stand-up lawyer person, and also because he is a stand-up comedian. And if you are not following and subscribed to Jordan, please do that now. You can find him at the Stand Up Lawyer here on Substack. So anyway, would you take us through this order? Again, it's very short, but it's just at any time a judge gives such a spanking and calls someone out personally, It's just wonderful. So yeah, tell us what
I
happened.
got it in front of me. I have to read this. I'm going to read the first paragraph because it's just astounding. You can just hear the judge. This is how the judge looks as he's reading this. On June 12th, 2026, defendants were offered the opportunity to end this litigation by filing written declarations under penalty of perjury, affirming what they have represented to the public, the House Appropriations Subcommittee, justice, science related agencies, our judicial colleagues in the United District Court for the District of Columbia, and this court. Namely, that they will not take any action to create or operate the Anti Weaponization Fund, and the fund will not proceed in any manner or under any other name. Easy, right? Yeah. Instead of filing those declarations, defendants have filed a notice declining to provide such assurances under penalty of perjury, claiming, quote, such declarations are unnecessary, and the compelled testimony of senior officials from the executive branch implicates serious separation of powers concerns. Now, that's a bunch of lawyerly gobbledygook for, nah, we don't wanna, and you can't make it. And the judge, as a matter of fact, I can make you, and I'm going to make you. You have to do something. And separation of powers concerns. This is checks and balances. This is not intruding on the executive. This is like, hey, are you doing something legal or not? We need you to like tell us under oath what you're doing. And the again, you can it's dripping anger from like annoyance by this judge. Like, this was so easy. Like, you just needed to file a page-long document that says, we're not moving forward with this. And
Like,
they
the
could
very fact that you are unwilling to do it gives rise to the inference that you are planning to reanimate this slush fund. The fact that you are unwilling to say you won't under oath, even though, he kinda sorta already did to Congress. Yeah, that's very quickly because I see Jeff, going back to that IRS case, I think this is what Jeff is asking about. Out of that case came first the secret settlement, but also this a alleged agreement that the IRS would not investigate Trump or anyone in his family. And I have always said from the moment I got the document and read it that it doesn't say Trump anywhere. What it said was the IRS will not investigate plaintiff or plaintiff's family. But Trump dismissed that lawsuit. There was no entity plaintiff. There was no person anymore known as plaintiff because there was no lawsuit. So that is, you know, I don't think any of that has been litigated. I think it's kind of fallen by the wayside. But that is what that's my legal take on it. Anyway, sorry about that.
no, no. This is all important because the context of what brought us here informs why there is earned mistrust here.
Yes,
And
yes.
there is earned mistrust. Lifetime to make trust doesn't take long to break it. And judges are very much reluctant to throw bombs. So what they wrote is this. He's the this the It sounds very lawyerly. The judge writes, the defendants have refused to accord a genuine degree of trustworthiness to their representations about the fund not going forward. That they did that is particularly concerning because of, and this is what I'm talking about, the president's consistent support for the fund and acting Attorney General Blanche's acknowledgement that the fund remains important, to your point. So there are two things here. One, genuine degree of trustworthiness is a judge speak for, I think you're lying to me. And even if, or at the very least, you're not giving me a reason to trust you. And I really want to trust you. And gosh, you're making it so annoying. Also, the guy who signs your paychecks, president, keeps saying he wants it. That seems important. You also said it's important. So you have given yourself enough wiggle room to back out of every testimony you've said, which is why you saying we're not moving forward, that's not enough. We need you to swear it's not moving forward or we're going to litigate this case. All you have to do is sign something that says you're never going to do it. And he can't do that. And it's because Trump doesn't want him to. That is the implication.
Yeah,
It would
that
rather, be dragged through this litigation than swear under penalty of perjury that this is not moving forward.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that's it's going to come to a head on July. You said you have it in front of you?
I
I,
do.
let's see, it's,
July
July 17th.
Yes. Yes.
Jinx. Yeah, yeah, so basically and just to be super clear for people, here's the actual wording of the one line of which is the order itself is the last sentence. It says ordered that defendant's answer or other responsive pleading be filed by Friday, July 17th, 2026. Now, I absolutely know that there are people in the audience who are saying, well, okay, but what if they don't produce those filings? And I know that there are actually, there's at least one case now I think it's in DC with Judge Boasberg to determine to what extent the judge can hold the administration in contempt, which they can do. And so I think that would be you may see it differently or you may have more context, but I think, the question as to what remedies are there if they don't produce that, number 1 is contempt.
Yes, contempt, I would imagine sanctions could be available. Just, the question of whether it instills compliance because is another thing, because there's a decent chance that the government is just willing to take this because they have larger plans in mind. Like, this is very important to Trump, so it's very important to Todd Blanche. That's just how this goes. They have decided, and this happens a lot in this administration, they would rather be slammed by the court or get orders ordering them to stop rather than just say, sure, we'll stop doing this. And to your point, they often, most of the time do end up following court orders, even if they have to get dragged kicking and screaming to it. While at the same time, the amount of brinkmanship and the amount of times they are ruled against is contrary to what their supporters say. That's not evidence of judicial bias. That's evidence of you all keep screwing up so badly that you're forcing judges to put out these orders again and again and again. And I want to cover an issue that I think is really interesting here, which goes to the trickery. We talked about the doctrine of mootness. Now, mootness is essentially, well, there's no controversy before the court, so we don't have to litigate anymore. But sometimes a person sues and has a problem that might go away before they can resolve the case. A common example is someone suing over something pregnancy related, and they're not going to stop the case just because the person gives birth because something's at issue relating to the pregnancy. So in this case, what the government tried to do is say, hey, it's moot. We're not going to do it. And the court cited a case that I thought was really interesting. And they were saying, if you're choosing to withdraw your case, you have a huge burden of showing that it's, quote, clear the allegedly wrongful behavior could not reasonably be expected to recur. And they cited a case I really liked. They said an example of conduct found insufficient to satisfy this high burden includes a defendant's, and this is great language, reluctant decision to change a policy because such reluctance suggests, quote, a desire to return to the old ways. So that's really where this is.
Can you apply that in plain English
Yes,
to Blanche?
if if uh if the defendant says, I don't really want to do it, but sure, that signals to the court, okay, you don't really want to stop this case. You are not giving me the assurances that this will never happen again. So I have a sense that if I stop my judicial supervision of you, you're just going to go do this thing that you swear that you're definitely, well, maybe not going to do anymore. So, and that's what the court said. They said the president, which again keeps throwing wrenches into this, and Blanche have continued saying over and over again they are interested in compensating victims of alleged weaponization. So your unwillingness to provide penalty of perjury declarations and this too we haven't talked about, Blanche's refusal to rescind the May 18, 2026 memo that set up the fund, all of that suggests you're not actually serious about any of this. And I can't trust you. I've asked you to do the bare minimum and swear that the things you've said in public are what you intend to do. And your unwillingness to do that, and the president repeatedly saying, I absolutely want it to go forward, means, okay, you have not satisfied the burden of proving you're not doing this. So now I'm going to order you again. You have to do this. You absolutely. The first one was, please do this. And now it's like, okay, you have to. You've tried my patience.
Yeah.
I cannot make this any easier for you. It shouldn't be hard. You already said you don't want to do it. So it shouldn't be hard to swear that. And they're like, oh, it's so hard. Like, no, okay, that gives me a red flag.
Well, and also it's they just keep saying it's so unnecessary. And, you know, obviously it is necessary because, it's kind of like, you know, he pinky swears that they're not gonna move forward with it, but with the other hand, his fingers are crossed behind his back, and which one do you believe?
Right. I just, the fact is, I mean, we saw this with the bipartisan housing bill that had a signing ceremony. And then Trump changed his mind at the last minute to be like, I'm holding this up for the SAVE Act. It's a national emergency. And like always, all of the congressional people have to be like, no, 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 we weren't blindsided. Sure, I showed up to this signing ceremony ready for signing, but golly, golly, that president always doing president stuff. I Please don't ask me any more questions.
Well,
It's
now that you brought that up, what is your sense of that? Because so for people who didn't hear, there was a bipartisan measure, which is at this point kind of shocking in and of itself, right? But it was a bipartisan housing bill. And so all that had to happen was Trump needed to sign it. And as Jordan said, Trump at the last minute said he's not going to sign it unless they pass the SAVE Act, which he has been told 6 ways to Sunday isn't going to happen. I've been saying, the guy, those of you who follow me, I have said since day one that it's not gonna happen, and people have just been so, still, even now, "Oh my god, married women aren't gonna be able to vote, and, it's attacking married women, it's attacking women, it's and I just have said consistently, "It's not gonna pass." Um, and here is an example, actually, that just proves that because like, Jordan said, Trump at the last minute said, "Wait a minute, I'm not gonna sign this bipartisan bill, because, you haven't passed the SAVE Act yet. You have to pass the SAVE Act." And so a couple of different things can happen now. He hasn't vetoed it, as far as I know, yet. He could veto it, in which case it would require an override, which requires a two-thirds majority, and I think they may even have that. Or he could just not sign it, which starts tolling a 10-day clock where as long as Congress is in session through day 10, the bill just becomes law automatically. Or, they could do, monkey business like Johnson often does and somehow make Congress not be in session, in which case it will be a pocket veto, essentially. What do you think is going to happen
Ah,
if
it
you were
I would lose. If you're ever going to try to guess what Trump is going to do from day to day, you will lose money a lot because it is very hard to predict because it is in his best interest to sign bills that look like he's doing stuff. They don't have a lot of legislative accomplishments, but he also doesn't really think about that. He is just very laser focused on, he's been told you will lose the midterms unless the SAVE Act. So I think that's the thing he's latched onto. What do I think is going to happen? I think the most likely thing would be what has happened with other non controversial things. He vetoes it, and the two-thirds majority decides not to vote for it because Trump told them not to. There's been cases like that where they had a two-thirds majority, and when he vetoed it, plenty enough Republicans switched their votes to no to avoid the override because they're like, well, even though I supported this, he told me not to. So I would say it. I would say the most likely option would be either he vetoes it or Johnson closes Congress and it becomes a pocket veto because I really don't think he's going to just let it go into law. I mean, that's certainly a possibility, but I think at this point letting a bill go into law without his signature would hurt his ego more than if he just signed it. So if he's going to go to law, he signs it. I don't see it becoming law by just waiting. I think I think he truly believes that this is helping him to have leverage over people, but it's kind of like cutting your nose off to spite your face. Like, really, we have something we can run on, regardless of how much it actually accomplishes. We can say, look, we're not just a do nothing Congress. We Republicans can get together and pass actual affordability based legislation. And Trump's like, no. And that makes it very hard. So, what is my prediction? I think it's most likely it either gets pocket vetoed or actually vetoed and they don't override it, because we have precedent of that happening where the two-thirds majority was voted down because they took their direction from him. And, you know, I could be wrong. It could also be that they're more emboldened to oppose him now because he's, you know, knocking off people in primary challenges for the sin of not voting with him 0.8% of the time, like John Cornyn, and I think it's unpredictable. I don't know. I don't know. None of us do. Anyone who claims to know is just trying to get clicks.
That's absolutely true, which is, so I was asking for your best guess, and I think that was a pretty good guess, and it aligns with what I think as well. But I also do think that the closer we get to the midterms, the rock of Trump and the hard place of wanting to stay in office and show their constituents that they're there for them is going to get tighter and tighter, that squeeze. And so I think there is a potential, maybe even a likelihood that, again, the closer to the midterms we get, the more those people who are up for reelection are going to start trying to break with him. His popularity is just in the tank. So, but I do agree with that. I also wanted to touch. Actually, is there anything more you want to say about our actual we were here, the weaponization, before I change the subject again?
Sure. You know, this is the case with Trump a lot. And this is the thing that one of the things that frustrates me the most is he has control of both houses. Most of the thing he does by executive order, he could probably get Congress to vote on, but he just doesn't want to do that either out of laziness or more likely because he's like, I'm the president, I can do it. And one of our saving graces is he's so stubborn and so I can do it myself, I alone can fix it, that things that would easily pass Congress, like tariffs probably would have easily passed Congress if they had just done that, ends up getting him locked up in court. If he had somehow been able to get people to put this weaponization thing in the reconciliation bill, we wouldn't be here. But because they just refuse to follow simple procedure, they keep getting things that would have been passed by Congress or would have been approved some other way gummed up the works. And, our best saving grace right now is kind of their malicious incompetence. They are so overconfident about the things they want to do, but not just what they want to do, how they want to do it, because
Yeah.
it looks more powerful to just have it come out of the Department of Justice and with the executive branch than, ooh, I have to ask Congress for permission. And that failure to go through the rules process of anything is why a lot of their worst things get blocked. And Trump doesn't even want to come up with a compromise to the SAFE Act. He doesn't want to come up with things that would be harder to vote down, like I would say a simple voter ID requirement tied to like making election day a holiday would be the kind of thing people would probably support. But he doesn't want to do that. And that makes me doubtful of what his intentions are and other people doubtful of his intentions. So to say about the weaponization fund, it's another example of them rushing so much to do something because Trump ordered them to do it, rather than go through the simple process that would make it legitimate, that now they have to get gummed up in court. And now that they're here, they refuse to take the easy off ramp because Trump doesn't like the off ramp.
Right, right, and of course, as you mentioned earlier, Trump is his own worst enemy in as much as his postings on social media, which have been used in multiple cases now, to that is the petard on which these cases often get hoisted, and I mean, thank goodness for that he can't it's good that he can't control, his posting, but it's also very ridiculous. So, back to the SAVE Act, as you may have seen, and my followers, I wrote about this yesterday, the courts yesterday basically, again, just spanked the heck out of him for his executive order that had been issued last year that was essentially a mirror of the SAVE Act. So he was trying through both avenues to get the same things passed, voter ID, controlling or getting rid of mail-in, ballots and those sorts of things. So the SAVE Act isn't going to pass. It's, you know, it th that just it's not gonna happen. It hasn't happened because it's not going to. And now yesterday, this decision came out about the executive order that ordered, that attempted to order the same things, as what is in the SAVE Act, and the court came out and just basically said, "You have absolutely no authority to do that." In fact, boy, I wish I had the quote right in front of me, but basically the court said, "You, the president, are charged with upholding the law," which by its very definition means you aren't charged with creating law, which is essentially what this executive order was trying to do kind of through the back door.
Yes.
So at the same time, it may have even been yesterday, the post office issued a regulation basically saying, and I know there's a lot of questions because I've been getting a lot of questions about this. I haven't had a chance to write it up, and I may or may not get a chance to write it up. But basically, is it DeJoy who's there still? Um,
It's this guy. I used to be a guy who could tell you the whole cabinet, but these guys stay for so short and they keep changing out.
I know. I know. Okay, well, whoever it is right now, who's the Postmaster General, issued a regulation yesterday saying, "We're not gonna accept mail-in ballots from states that don't give us their voter rolls." And easy for me to say, voter rolls. So the questions that I'm getting is like, "Well, what's going to happen there?" And I am 100% confident that is probably already being challenged in court. I'm sure the lawsuits are being filed, especially on the heels of the decision yesterday, voiding that executive order. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but I wanted to put
Well,
that out there.
a lot of people ask, why would you be so confident the act wouldn't pass? And there are two reasons. One, there is already some opposition to it. I believe Murkowski has come out against it. But the bigger issue is the filibuster. Traditionally speaking, it's been Democrats who want to get rid of the filibuster because their view is we want to do expansive government things and we need no filibuster to do that. Whereas
Do you
Republicans,
wanna
yeah.
do you wanna explain in plain English what the filibuster is and does?
Sure. The filibuster basically says that you need 60 votes to vote to end debate and move a law towards passage. In the old days, you had to stand and talk, but now you can basically stop it by saying, I filibuster, like Michael Scott, I declare bankruptcy, I declare filibuster. And traditionally, Republicans like Mitch McConnell have not wanted to get rid of that because they feel, and I think correctly, that Democrats have more to gain by getting rid of the filibuster and doing their dirty work for them. So that's why you have a lot of Senate institutions who are like, we have to think by the next election, because if the filibuster wasn't in place, the Democrats could have passed all kinds of stuff in 2021 and 2022, election bills or adding states and so forth. So that's the one reason that's the one reason I don't think it's going to pass is because they don't have the votes to break the filibuster, which you need 60 to do, and you don't have the vote to get rid of the filibuster. They don't even have 51 votes to end the filibuster on this issue. And uh, and again, this isn't wish casting, isn't hopium. It's just raw political reality that there are senators who are around long enough who are like, Trump won't be here forever. We have to imagine, what would a president AOC, what would a president, whoever you want to fill in the gap, do with this power? And so they're basically just trying to assuage Trump as long as possible in the hope that he forgets it. He's not going to, but at this point, I don't see the votes. I don't see the filibuster ending. I think there's enough people to vote no on the filibuster, vote no on overturning it for it to actually be a problem. But I think a lot of people read a lot of stuff that's like, this law has definitely passed and we're all in trouble because you get clicks by panic. A lot of people are under the impression that panicking is doing something, and it's actually the opposite. If you there's science behind this, that if you articulate your worries, and if you're not preparing for the terrible thing, you're just going through all the stress as if the terrible thing has already happened, and you're not any more prepared. You're like, you must be vigilant. Like, yeah, but breathe for a moment, know what is a threat and what is less of a threat, so you can focus on, in order, the things that are actually action items, as you say.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's to their advantage to have you panicked and stressed and confused. It's because, as you know, some of you may be sick of hearing me say this, but a confused and stressed populace is a weak populace. By keeping people running around like the chickens with their heads cut off, going like, "Ah, the sky is falling," to mix a metaphor, then you can't as readily coalesce and become a strong, united block. So yeah, it's absolutely to their advantage to keep people confused and stressed. So we have gone not over, but we're going on close to, you know, 45 minutes. So I just wanna make sure that I am being mindful of your time. And is there anything and again, people who have joined since the last time I said this, my guest is Jordan Parker Esquire. He is a stand-up lawyer, and he is also the stand-up lawyer because he also is a stand-up comic, but he's just also an all-around fantastic guy. And he was a friend first, and then he was always a colleague, but, we met friendship-wise, over a dog, his dog. So, please follow him if you're not following him because he deserves it, frankly, and your life will be better for it. Is there anything else you wanna talk about before we
I
close?
I don't have a follow-up. That's too kind by far, but, your words carry great weight, and I appreciate you as a friend and as a colleague, and I've always admired the work you do, because the the work of telling people, yes, there's stuff to worry about, but worry effectively, focus effectively. And that is a very tough place to be in a world where the sky is falling is both an overreaction to what's happening, but also there are some places where the sky does appear to be falling. So you have to focus your panic, your action, in the right direction. And I think you've always done a good job of creating that credibility of, I'm not going to tell you the sky is falling unless I actually see chunks of sky coming down. That way you know that this is worth worrying about. And I appreciate what you do. I appreciate your kind words about me. And I appreciate that there is space on the internet where people are hungry to just listen to calm analysis about things that are happening, to focus not on the insults we can sling, but on what, call balls, call strikes, to quote what John Roberts said he was going to do, and stay focused on what matters and stay focused on what's true, most importantly of all. And I appreciate everything that you do to promote debate and to promote understanding. And I thank you to all the people who follow her as well.
Oh, well, that's really thank you. Thank you for those kind words. All right, everybody. This is hey, Glenn, you joined just in time for us to close. Yeah, everybody, this has been great. We've been talking about the weaponization order, the weaponization fund order that came out yesterday. That was just beautiful, beautiful. I'll be sending that out to my people sometime today, and you will be able to watch the recording of this whole thing. It's going to be just about 45 minutes so that if you missed some of it, you will be able to hear Jordan's amazing words of wisdom on replay. And again, follow Jordan and go forth and have a great rest of your week and weekend. And thank you so much for joining us. Bye,
Thank,
everybody.
Goodbye, and thank you, Anne.